How many of you guys are getting older? Who said no?
Thank goodness.
Okay, that's a bad thing. Because you might want to reconsider your answer. Because if you're not getting older, what's happening?
You're dead.
You're dead. Okay? So life is a struggle every day from the moment we're born to get one more day older. And as we mature through our young adult to adulthood and then into our mature adult years, we begin to run into problems that we never even thought we might run into before. So I come before you tonight just to discuss that issue a little bit, to get a little bit of feedback from you and maybe have a little open forum discussion regarding that issue. So I really would like to hear some of your thoughts on this subject as well. And the subject I present is much like the pledge we just said, an equal justice for all. You ever think about what that means? Equal justice for all? Now, does that mean everybody gets treated equally? Does that mean that everybody should get the same size stick? Is there something called fundamental fairness in the world? And these are all philosophical questions that we wrestle with every day, and when we try to chart our course, our philosophical course through life, and as what's important to us, and what and how we act in regards to things. In my practice, what I do is I work with older people every day as they age, and as they run into a problem called the nursing home. And what's the problem with the nursing home? Why is that an issue for my clients? Cost. Has anybody had any experience with a nursing home in this room before? Okay. How much does it cost to be in a nursing home on a monthly basis? $6,000? Okay.
Well, that's minimum assisted living.
Yeah, that would be
$6,000
for assisted living, right?
$6,000 or so a month for just a small assistance.
Right, that's assisted living, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this next step after that, which is the nursing home.
8,000, 9,000.
Last bill I saw a couple weeks ago, a client, I was helping a client in my Punta Gorda office, was $11,500 for the month of April. How many of you guys make $11,500 a month? It's Louis. Okay. And Louis, by the way, that's a quality problem. That's good. But $11,500 a month. When a family runs into that particular problem, that is a catastrophic issue for that family. And if we look at it statistically, 1 out of 3 men will go through a nursing home before you die and pass on into the next life. And if you're a woman, it's a 50-50 chance. How long your stay is going to be in there is a lot of variables that kick into that. The averages I don't think really speak to us in any way that gives us any indication. But the averages usually say 3 to 5 years, depending upon your circumstances. So at $11,000 a month, it's pretty easy to do the math before you reach a catastrophic result. And that catastrophic result is 0. So remember I said equal justice for all. And I wanted to play a little game with you guys tonight. Dale passed around a little piece of paper. Do everybody have your piece of paper?
Yep.
Okay, those of you guys who have an A, raise your hand. All right. All right, keep your A's. All right, very good. Those of you who have a C, raise your hand. All right, good. This is one case where having a C is better than having an A.
Yeah, I told you that.
I told you that.
So if you got a C, you guys are in good shape. If you guys have an A, you are going to be financially devastated.
But they're going to die from C death, so it's okay.
We're all going to die from something. Which, thank goodness, we are all going to die from something. But let me explain to you why a C is so good. Because if you have a C, then you have cancer. That's good. Absolutely. Because if you have an A, you have Alzheimer's. Okay. Why is having a C better? Well, once upon a time, because there's a cure. Yeah, it's good because there's a cure. It's a good answer.
And also die sooner.
You might die sooner. It depends on what kind of cancer you have, perhaps. All right. It actually comes down to one of our favorite friends,
Gee, I'm not so happy.
Lyndon Baines Johnson. Do you remember who he was?
Say what?
Thought I'd get a better response. Well, Lyndon Johnson, yes, you mentioned the Great Society, this wonderful new world order of things. But when Johnson came in the attempted socialized medicine in the late 1960s, he failed in that attempt. But what he was able to get out of that was what? Medicaid and Medicare. Okay. Now, Medicare is health care for who? Older
Seniors.
people, seniors. And Medicaid is health care for who?
Poor.
Poor. Okay, good. Good answers all the way around, absolutely. And I would agree with that statement until about 1988. And in 1988, what happened is President Reagan came along. Remember him? Okay. Now, President Reagan saw a problem coming upon this country, and he saw a problem that we were becoming a nation of older people. The demographics of our country were changing. Our healthcare system was better, we were living longer, and there was just more old people than there had ever been. And statistically, there was going to be more of them into the future. And what he saw was that we were rapidly becoming not only a nation of old people, but a nation of poor old people. Why? Because of the advance in healthcare. The advance in healthcare have allowed us to live longer and to experience such wonderful diseases like you AIDS, you Alzheimer's folks. That disease process didn't really exist in 1968. Why? Because you probably died from something else before that came along. But now that we're living longer into our late 80s, 90s, and even into our hundreds, we are finding that we're running into these processes like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, vascular dementia, other types of problems that are more chronic than acute, and that the only way to systematically treat these people are in nursing homes. The nursing home, as we know it today, didn't exist in 1968. It was the old folks' home. Today, however, the nursing home is really an extension of our healthcare delivery model and is, in essence, hospital-like. Again, why is all that important? Because it costs you $11,500 to be there. So why the A versus C? Well, in 1968, when Medicare was created, Medicare did not adequately cover people with chronic diseases like Alzheimer's. They didn't see it as an issue back then. In hindsight, I can understand why. In 1988, however, Reagan had seen this problem coming on our nation, ironically, Alzheimer's disease, which is kind of an interesting irony there, saw that this problem was coming upon us, worked with Congress, again, amazing times, worked with Congress and expanded Medicaid coverage for the middle-class senior in this country. Changing Medicaid from, in a sense, a poverty program, a welfare program for the poor, into, in essence, a middle-class entitlement for seniors to help them pay for the cost of care inside of a nursing home. And they did this basically, Congress and Reagan did this by changing the eligibility requirements for Medicaid. They made it so that you did not have to be poor any longer in order to be eligible for Medicaid, to pay for the cost of care in the nursing home. Now, why did they do this? I don't know. I wasn't privy to the inside of things, but if I had to guess, it's a lot easier to fix and mess with Medicaid than it is to touch Medicare. Think about it politically. You say the word Medicare, and that's a political nightmare. Medicaid, that's for poor people, whatever, right? And you can maybe do something there that you couldn't do in the Medicare side. That's just my guess. Bottom line, though, is in 1988, in the Medicare and Medicaid Catastrophic Coverage Act, there was this huge change in how Medicaid delivers services to seniors in this country. And basically opened it up so that you could use Medicaid now to pay for the cost of the nursing home. And ever since 1988, the pendulum has been swinging in this direction. You ever heard of that? Things are on a pendulum. They'll start out one place, and then over time, they just move, and they'll reach a zenith at the other end, and then they'll start moving back. It's just the natural order of things. Medicaid isn't much different than that. It starts way over here, Very easy to qualify for benefits, very generous, very easy, very much an open system. And then it starts getting more and more difficult as legislation and states start changing it to restrict access to that program. So now we come to you A's and C's. Why is it good to be a C? Because if you have a C, Medicare is going to pay for all of your treatment, in essence. It's going to pay for your surgery, your hospital stay, your recovery, your chemotherapy, your radiation. And because you have a C, because you have cancer, that disease process is not going to wipe you out financially. Thank goodness. But those of you guys who have an A, Medicare doesn't pay for your care. Medicare says, we'll pay for 100 days in the nursing home to get you better, but if you don't get better, sorry, you have to start paying privately. And if you start paying privately at $11,500 a month, it does not take long to become poor. So when I say equal justice for all, A's and C's are not equal tonight. A's go broke, C's get protected. Unless, and this is why I wanted to bring in the fact of Medicaid, unless you can access Medicaid to pay for the cost of that care. How do you do that? I gave you some materials to look at, some interesting information. I actually put you a CD in there that tells you all the details of how Medicaid works. There's a 200-page book that I wrote in there that you can put on your Kindle or your iPad or whatever device you read, or you can just read it on your computer if you want. But what I want to talk about tonight briefly is just this disparity between the A's and the C's, and how we view Medicaid somehow differently than Medicare. And that when it comes down to approaching this population, people that need this, what are we going to do about it? And what should our reaction and response be to solving that problem? And that's some of the feedback I wanted from you. But I want to tell you about a client I had this morning first. Interesting, she was Hispanic, how coincidental. 89 years old. I've been working with her and her family since 2005. Her name is Teresa. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman. Spanish is her primary language. She doesn't speak very good English, and I don't speak very good Spanish, but it was still fun to speak with her in my broken Spanish. The problem is over the last couple of years, her memory impairment has gotten worse. The short-term memory has pretty much gone. And her son, especially in the Hispanic culture, I've noticed that it's very family-oriented, and her son has moved in and has been living with her for many years, since almost 2007. But it's getting to the point where he may not be able to provide care for her. Now, her husband has passed away, so she's a widow. So now the question becomes, is this woman, who's 89 years old, has, I think, about $70,000 left. That's her life savings. And we're looking at possibly having to place her in a nursing home to provide for her day-to-day care. That's 6 months, and her $70,000 will be gone. The question is what should we do about that problem? And we have a choice. In my world, what I do is and philosophically, that's why I wanted to talk to you and hear some feedback from you. I'm very interested actually to hear that. What I do is I make sure that I equalize that playing field for Teresa, so that she gets treated just the same as if she would have had cancer if she was a C. Just because she has an A, she doesn't have to lose her $70,000, her entire life savings that she has. And now she is going to be able to qualify for Medicaid to pay for the cost of that care and still have access and retain that $70,000 because of the way the Medicaid laws are written. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Now, philosophically, I'll share with you, I'll give you the cheat sheet. And from my perspective, I say, no, it's not a bad thing. It's merely allowing us to equalize and provide equal justice for all, so that whether you're a C or an A, whether you have cancer or Alzheimer's, the result will be the same as far as your financial outcome. Now, what do you think? Brave enough to give me some feedback?
So you said Medicaid allows you to keep $70,000?
No, Medicaid actually doesn't allow you to keep $70,000. It's a good question. Medicaid only allows you to keep $2,000.
So what is she going to do
What is she gonna do with her 70,000? Well, first of all, she's gonna hire me. Okay, kind of bluntly honest when it comes to things like that. She's gonna hire me, and I'm going to, what I famously call, reposition her assets so that she can qualify for Medicaid benefits, preserve her $70,000, and have Medicaid pay for the cost of her care in the nursing home. Good thing or bad thing?
Yeah, because if
And that's the discussion I wanted to have with you guys. Yes, sir.
yeah,
Well,
because,
ladies first, excuse me.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm saying,
both
because
of you
she
guys
has
are right.
$70,000, that's only gonna last for how many months?
6 months max.
6 months. Okay, then what's gonna happen after she runs out of money?
She gets Medicaid.
Then she gets Medicaid.
That should
No,
go on
but you're
that.
saying she'll be able to keep the 70,000 if you do something else.
If I do my job, what
Yeah,
I've done
but-
for the last 23 years, which is utilize Medicaid's rules and laws in order to legally, ethically, morally, above board, out in the sunshine, move and reposition those funds so that she meets Medicaid's eligibility requirements.
See, I see what I'm saying. Let's say like the people that are paying for Medicare right now, like,
Sure.
she's 19 years old, she's paying for Medicare right now.
Right? Me too.
So then what happens, like, if you don't have Alzheimer's, you end up with something else, like cancer, like he said.
If
So
you're
then
got cancer,
Medicare
you're
will
good
cover
shape.
you. So what happens to the people that start paying for Medicare now, and then they do get Alzheimer's? So then, you know, what happens to all that money that you put into Medicare and?
Well, remember, the money that we've all paid into Medicare,
Yeah,
and I don't want
this
I don't want this to be a discussion necessarily about Medicare per
Yeah.
se, because that could go, that's a high,
Right.
that, you never bristle. I really wanted to focus though on the comparison between the two, okay? So, you had a question or statement?
Well, the intention is good and the act is good, but it seems like you're justifying the means, the end by the means.
Perhaps.
And that could be a moral issue. I mean, I can argue and say, hey.
Oh, no, that's why I wanted to come here tonight, because I really wanted to hear that feedback and have you guys stretch your minds a little bit around this, because this is not a black and white issue, without question. And as your perspective changes, so does your mind. Because when it's your mother, or grandmother, or wife that has Alzheimer's, that's going into the nursing home, all of a sudden, this makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
You've heard of NIMBY? Not in my backyard, right? Same kind of philosophy. When you have a person, yes, sir.
Yeah,
No, I paid Medicaid claims back, it was probably 10 years ago, so I don't remember this. It seems like it's fairly new. And kind of related to the gentleman's question, I can't see how there would be a whole lot of people ready to jump into a Medicaid pool. You say you've been doing this 23 years. How many people have you have done that, would you say? I mean, just for you. I mean, is it
10,000.
10,000?
23 years.
10,000 people.
I'm really good at what I do.
Not everybody has $11,000 to be in a
It's
nursing
not
home.
70,000. If I had $10 million, I can still qualify for Medicaid.
Yeah, you could. I could make Bill Gates eligible for Medicaid.
Where's
Well,
the
you better
evidence?
get rid of the asses first, though.
No.
All right, but this is a false argument. It's a false argument. Because, it sounds good. And there's even a great bit of alliteration that I like to use on this. And it's millionaires on Medicaid. And I can tell you, in 23 years of practicing elder law, the amount of millionaires that I qualified for Medicaid, I can count on one hand, out of 10,000. Okay, and those are special circumstances. So you run into a baby in bathwater problem real fast. Because millionaires don't need to be on Medicaid. They have, their cash flow is such that they don't have a negative cash flow situation. They could be in a nursing home for the rest of their life and never deplete their assets. So
Well-
that's a false argument.
not necessarily, not
Right.
always necessarily, because,
Tell me.
because maybe the family has money, but they have children that are middle-aged or so like that, unemployed. So they have to rely on the parents' income too. They don't have money, so they have to rely on the
There's a
parents'
point,
income.
and I would like to take what you just said, and everybody heard her, is that the special circumstances of the children, okay? And have you guys ever seen that famous bumper sticker in Pinellas County? I'm spending my children's inheritance, right, or grandchildren's inheritance, or fill in the blank. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But many people want to live a legacy to their family. And interestingly enough, in my opinion, the great country of America, the United States of America, is based upon its middle class. Do you agree? Okay. Any of you who've traveled abroad or in South America or in Central America, the disparity between the haves and the have-nots produces a social system that just doesn't function well unless you're a have. And even if you're a have, I don't think it really functions that well. When I was in Venezuela, actually my favorite story is I was with the vice president's son in Costa Rica, and we went to their compound. And I'd never seen this before. I was just a kid in college. Around the walls, around their compound, you know what's sticking up? Glass. Shattered bottles and glass stuck into the wet concrete to make it so you couldn't crawl. It's like, I guess, Central American barbed wire. I don't know what you call it. But it was just, it left an impression in my brain that we do not want to be a nation of haves and have-nots. So the point that you're making, the one that I want to take here, is that when we have Teresa, who has $70,000, and she dies with $70,000, that $35,000 is split between her two sons. And what that acts at is a safety net for them, so that if one of them loses their job, if one of their spouses is sick and they have to stay home and take care of that, or if their kid needs maybe a college education or needs some assistance with paying for that college education, or some sort of catastrophic event that would have them fall through the cracks and into the have-not area, that legacy that Teresa left them allows them to stay in the middle class. And that's just, again, a point that I just wanted to expand upon from there. Other comments? I can't wait for both of you guys to say something. Yes, how about you?
Well, you gave me the answer 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
You're the third time I've heard now in the last 7 or 8 years about repositioning assets
Yes.
to save you from this very thing.
Okay, go on.
So I think I'm convinced
You're convinced.
that's the best way to do this in the years I have left.
Thank you. That was a brave statement.
Excellent.
I happen to agree with you, but that was a good statement. So yes, one.
I know you don't want to give away your secrets.
Oh no, hey, that's right. You got everything. I'll tell you anything you want. It's all good.
Well, you're talking about repositioning of assets, I
Yes.
understand that. You can't give it to your kids.
Giving it to your kids is flatly, absolutely against the rules. The rules say that you'll be penalized if you give your assets away.
What?
Forgive them.
What?
So give me,
What?
go sit down, Ron. So give me one example where you can reposition an asset and not have to lose it all.
I will. The question is, give me one example where you can reposition. That's my favorite. That's my lawyer euphemism talking. Okay.
Yeah, just reposition the money.
So you can forgive me on that part. Well, you can't give it. See, and the word is give. The word give is bad. I say in my presentations.
And you put it in a trust fund for the kid?
No.
You can give so much a year to your kids.
Yeah, you can do that, but that's a tax issue. You can give $13,500, I think it is a year now.
That's it. Yeah.
But that's still a gift.
But I don't think
Let him tell us, well,
I don't have to agree with this reposition assets. I'm saving all my
Were you an A or a C?
Hey.
Okay, well,
I haven't
you'll
lost
lose
my
all your
mind.
money. It's okay. Oh, let me answer his question.
Okay, so,
Yes.
now this is a mind blower, okay, now concentrate on what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, the haves,
Donna, let him answer the question first,
Oh,
then you can ask your
I'm
question.
sorry.
Calm down, Donna.
I'm sorry.
Put you in the spreadsheet
Thank you.
again.
Thank you, it's okay.
Okay, before I have to pull a Marco Rubio, that's not a bottle of water for me. Anyone?
I'm looking.
Could you please?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm taking
Yeah, I have
medication, it
it
makes my
down.
mouth really dry, so I apologize.
But I'm
Okay.
saving money to take care of me. So you're saying, give it away, whatever, get rid of it. And let the taxpayers take care of it?
Well, yes, I am.
Oh, boo.
I know, I knew it. I knew it. Finally got somebody good. Good. Excellent.
Well, you're paying for it right now, right? You're paying other people's, we're all paying.
but
Oh,
then-
we're
You
taxpayers.
should exhaust your assets.
We should all become Democrats,
Who has a seat?
That's it. Join the party.
Yeah.
Get on the
I'll be right
train.
back.
Rate the train.
Okay, I'm sorry. But now you're not gonna go broke.
I don't care if I go broke.
You don't care?
What that have to do with me? Give me a shot of morphine and I'm out of here.
I understand, and that's okay. Let me get to your
I do
philosophical
not
question.
like redistribution of wealth.
I understand that. I
Sean,
understand
can
that.
And that's exactly
Point
what it
something out.
is, because you're gonna,
Hold on.
I'm still waiting on my exam.
I'm getting there, man. I'm getting there. Don't worry. The redistribution of wealth argument is also another false argument. And the reason why that's a false argument is, let me tell you why. I gave everyone an A and a C tonight. That was random. The A's, they go broke. The C's get wealth redistributed to them. The C's are okay financially. If we switch your disease from cancer to Alzheimer's, you get treated completely different. And that's not equal justice for all.
but I
That's
don't
the
think
argument.
I don't think it's right to ask other people to take on the
Do
responsibility.
you
of
think
my
that
life.
I'm not paying for your health care with my tax dollars?
We're all paying.
No.
There you go.
But you think
That's called
you
redistribution
think
of wealth.
you think I agree with that either?
Well, then turn in your Medicare card.
I can't. What am I gonna do? Accept it to me.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, that's exactly, you just chase your tail.
tail.
Now, back to this question. The question was, if I remember correctly, is give me a real-world example of how to reposition your assets.
Yeah, just, I know.
And I will, I'm going to give you one that actually was of the target of House Bill 1323 and Senate Bill 1728. I believe I got that right.
You're talking
This
federal or state?
State legislation this session.
1323.
1323 is the House bill. Okay. This legislation targeted two of the techniques that I use, multiple, that I use in order to reposition the assets to qualify the client for Medicaid benefits. And what this technique does is it changes the vocabulary from gift, which is bad, into pay, which is good. Pay, when you pay the assets out, and there is an exchange of value. It's called a quid pro quo in Latin, an exchange of this for that. When you have an exchange of this for that, a payment, that is not a disqualifying transfer. So one of the things that I do is that I will pay a family member to provide care that I could normally go out into the community and buy from a home health care agency, a granny nanny type situation, to provide additional services above and beyond what the nursing home provides that individual. Visitation, health monitoring, meeting with the tax accountant, doing taxes, all those things that somebody has to do. I can pay somebody to do that. Thank you.
What are their reasons?
Oh, I didn't see it. I get talking about it sometimes.
That's okay, we love it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So you can pay somebody. Difference is in the vocabulary. Payment's good, transfer of gift is bad. So in House Bill 1323, what was proposed is that you could not pay a relative for those services.
Has to be a non-relative.
Would have to be a non-relative. Why? Because they wanted to take away that ability for me to equalize the playing field. Because of this rule, because the rule actually exists today in the Administrative Code of Florida that allows you to pay a relative to supply these services. That is what the rule actually says. That rule was challenged about 15 years ago, and DCF says, oh no, you can't do that. And the court said, well, if you can pay somebody else, why is there this artificial distinction with a relative? So DCF, Department of Children and Families, lost that. So what they proposed in 1323 was to now make that illegal to pay a relative. And if it wasn't going to be illegal, to be able to pay them no more than minimum wage.
Kiss my grits.
So now I have, I love government intrusion into our life. Now we have the state legislature telling exactly how much I can pay my child to provide care for me. And not a good idea, in my opinion, okay? Also, in House Bill 1323, they had something very, very nasty. As a husband and wife situation, you are not responsible, and I know you're going to know the word responsible. You're not responsible for the debts of your spouse. It may be a good thing, or maybe a bad thing, depends on your spouse. But nowhere is that in the law are you responsible for your wife's credit card charges. Nowhere in the law are you responsible to pay her health care costs. If she goes into the hospital, she's in whatever, she's uncovered, her insurance doesn't cover her for whatever reason, she has $1 million in I actually had this case, $1 million in uncovered health care charges, just because, in this case, he was actually a man, and he was 51 years old, got a type of Legionnaire's disease, and he went from walking and talking, and 36 hours was on a respirator for the rest of his life. Amazing, okay? That blew through all their insurance they had, and were way past, and had over $1 million in hospital bills. Was his wife responsible for that? The law says no. Just because you're married to somebody does not say you're responsible for the medical bills of your spouse. House Bill 1323, which was proposed, was to say that yes, you are. Because another technique that I use is a technique I call the recalcitrant spouse technique. The just say no technique in honor of Nancy Reagan. Just say no to what? Just say no to using my money to pay her nursing home bill. That's mine. I'm not going to pay for her nursing home. And if I do that, if I set that up, I put an affidavit in place, I do a certain assignment of rights, and I do a couple of things, then all of a sudden, my money is my money, and whatever she has is hers, and my money doesn't have to be used to pay her nursing home.
And so then Medicaid kicks in and takes care of her.
Then Medicaid will kick in and take care of her immediately. That's called a spousal refusal, recalcitrant spouse, or just say no, all the same technique.
Makes sense.
How about getting a divorce?
How about it?
Now you'll see there's a little article that I wrote and there that I put inside your flyer, and it says a kinder and gentler face. Do we really want to force our seniors to get divorced because your wife has Alzheimer's?
Yeah, really not married for the same reason.
Should we do that? Should we encourage that? Oh, we're family first, right? Family friendly?
We're killing babies.
Yeah, that's a good argument. So, it's a very interesting thing that nowhere else in the law are we going to make a spouse responsible, but yet here in the world of Medicaid, we're going to make sure that you are absolutely liable as a spouse just because you're married. So it does one of two things. One thing is it fosters divorce, and the second thing is it chills the institution of marriage. Because you're 70 years old, you just found this hot guy or hot girl, right? She's 80, and you're like, hey, honey, let's hook up, right? Let's go on a cruise, let's have some fun. Next thing you know, don't you think a wedding on the beach would be a good idea? Yeah, that'd be great, right? Except as soon as you say, I do pay for your nursing home. Okay? And that can really cause problems. They say, oh, get a prenuptial agreement or do something like that. It doesn't work. You can't draft your way out of that problem. Yes, sir.
But how long do you think it's going to last? Because she's 19. I just ran some numbers in my head and came up with a $10 trillion figure. I don't know how it's going to last.
I agree. I understand. All I'm trying to do.
She's not going to make it though, right? She's paying Medicaid and she's not going to get anything out of it unless she takes it right now, right?
Well, no, you're talking Medicare.
Okay, well.
Yeah, Medicaid's a little different.
Either one, I mean, but yeah, okay, Medicaid.
Medicare, Medicaid, the accounting game's a little different between the two. And I agree with you, I understand this, especially with what I call pig in the python problem. And the pig in the python problem is baby boomers coming online. And when that generation hits, when they turn 75, first of them are already turning 65 now. When that generation hits and that pig in the python rolls through, it's going to really tax, and I don't mean it as a taxation, I mean as in stretch the system to its breaking point, without question.
Well, of course,
But have you ever spit in the ocean? Did it do anything? If I save Teresa, if I make Teresa spend her $70,000 on her care, that's spinning in the ocean, man. That's not gonna change a thing, except force her, because she has an A, to lose all of her assets. If she had a C, she'd be okay. Equal justice for all, that's all I'm saying.
But with
So
Obama-
your point is well made, I agree, I don't have a solution to that one.
With Obamacare, they're gonna let us die anyway, she's 89.
That's, yeah, you're off. No, but actually, again, I know it's kind of funny, but Obamacare doesn't do anything with what I'm talking about right now. It's not, it doesn't touch this at all. This is a totally separate issue, completely apart and separate from the Obamacare issue.
Obamacare's health.
What did we do before Lyndon Johnson got elected in the Great Society? We took care of our family.
That's
I
right.
mean, I took care of 3 members of my family.
I understand,
they're all
that's,
dead.
that's a great question.
You can go to nursing
I was
homes.
born in 1965,
I worked
so
in nursing homes.
I couldn't
wouldn't
vote
put my
though,
family
okay?
in a nursing home.
But-
No way. No way.
You're gonna have to take me as your dad, just a few years. and
I
we'll be
will.
off.
I will.
No, and I agree with you, but again, I hate to disagree, and because let me tell you why. Because the times are changing, and the medical care that we provide our elderly today is not something that you provide in the front parlor of your home.
I had a
Okay.
brother that was a schizophrenic with 5 personalities. It took him for 10 years. I dealt with a lot of crazy things, but you learn. You know, of course I had a medical background, so that helped, but still, if
What about
you're
a person who
caretaker,
doesn't?
you can learn.
Okay, and then that person that's now taking care of mom with Alzheimer's disease, what's she doing for a living? Or what's he doing for a living?
Hopefully.
And because both husband and wife now are out in the economy working as hard as they can.
Why is that?
Because that's the way of the world.
Oh,
all right.
new way of the world.
New way of the world. And how are we going to take care of Grandma? How are we going to take care of Teresa? That woman, that 89-year-old woman with 2 sons who love her desperately. One of them who's living with her right now has lived with her for many years and is doing the best
You
he
find a
can.
caretaker, a good.
He is a caretaker.
You find another. You find someone to come into the home.
Okay. After $70,000 is gone, because I've spent that on private caretakers. Now what do I do?
I don't think you have to spend that $70,000. You can get a caretaker into that home at a reasonable price. There are people out there that have CNA degrees that love to go into homes. You don't have to go to an agency. You can find them. There are good
Yeah,
people
but
out there that would be willing
I
to work.
would, having dealt with this population for the last 23
Yeah, but
years.
Alzheimer's people, they
Respectfully
need
disagree.
round-the-clock care.
So
and those-
why? Hey.
Yeah, Alzheimer's, because I work with one.
Take $12 an hour to multiply it by 24,
Yeah.
multiply it by 30, and tell me what you
Yeah.
We got,
I respectfully disagree. I mean, I've seen this. I've seen
Yeah.
people try to take care of people with Alzheimer's. Even the most dedicated and absolutely, I'm not going to give up people, fail in that endeavor all the time. Why? Because of the disease process and how horrible it is to take care of that person. Okay. You may be special circumstances. That is not the norm.
I couldn't do it. No, I have 2 parents, in assisted living. And we have to hire, we hire visiting angels
Right.
for 9 hours a night for my father at night, so my mother can sleep.
Right, because she has.
And it's $866.25 a week. In assisted living, yeah.
And that's on top of the assisted living one.
Yeah, and then these people, okay, this is my old thing, please
Okay.
think about this,
I will.
all right? All right,
First of all, let me, before I go, because I
Can you
want to make
finish?
sure, did I
Finish?
give you a good, fair answer and
Yes.
complete?
Of course, I noticed the examples you gave me of things that are about to get killed in the law. Unless
No.
we stop it, of course.
Yes, this is correct.
No, okay.
Okay, let me get her, she's next, because she was actually after him, and then, I just to make sure.
Yeah.
I move her.
I mean, it's something to really think about.
Okay, give her your attention, she has a good question.
I don't know how you say this,
Silencio.
how you say this exactly, but the have-not want what the haves have, but don't realize that their children might be those have-nots,
Correct,
okay?
yes.
You know, because I'm not employed. And with my mother's situation, she's too fragile. I can't go out there and work and leave her alone with Dad. I have to be there. So I'm taking care, I mean, they're available 24/7.
Right.
And it's like, I'll be damned if I want those, the government to get whatever is left of the assets.
I think you
Okay.
should hire him.
Yeah, I do want to clarify on that one thing you said, because I agree with everything you say, except for the last sentence. And that's something that's a misconception, is that the government somehow comes in and takes any of your money. That's not what's happening. The government actually is there just to determine, and the rules are to determine whether or not you're eligible for that benefit or not. And if you're not eligible, your only other option is not, nobody takes anything, but you have to pay it to get that care. And that has the same result, but there's no act of taking by any government here.
But then when they die, it's like all this money goes to the government, when they're dying. What do I get after they're dead?
Well, actually, I'm not sure I understand, because interestingly enough, Medicaid has a lien against your state, just for a point of information. One of my favorite terms is bureaucratic logic. It's kind of like military intelligence. Okay. Bureaucratic logic. Medicaid actually has a lien against your estate when you pass to try to recover from that estate any of the monies that they spend on your behalf. But in order for you to be eligible for Medicaid, you have to have $2,000 or less in your estate. So I'm not really sure what they're recovering against. Okay. Florida also has a constitutional provision that says when you die, your home goes to your heirs free of the claims of any creditors. So they can't, in Florida at least, they cannot sell your home and force that to be used to pay the claim. Your home actually goes to your heirs in Florida. So that doesn't happen in Massachusetts or Michigan or other states, but Florida is very special when it comes to that situation. So you had a question?
No, I don't have a question. I kind of agree with him.
That's good.
See, years ago, when the children took care of the parents, it seemed like they all pulled in together. But now that they've got the ability to go to nursing homes and stuff, and I worked in a nursing home too, I was chaplain. And the ones that were doing well were the ones that were all into health. They had people sneaking in vitamins and stuff, supplements that they needed. The ones that were doing bad were the ones that would pump all this medication. Now, my girlfriend has been taking care of her mom and her dad, and he finally passed away, but he had dementia. He had dementia and Parkinson's. And she refused for them to go into any kind of nursing home. She wanted to take care of him. She did all the research she could. She got him on all holistic medications and stuff like that. His Parkinson's went away. And the doctor went, oh, I must have misdiagnosed. Okay? The
What
dementia.
What diagnosis did you get tonight? Did you get an A or a C diagnosis?
C.
Okay. So you're going to be
Now, as far as the dementia, she started cutting down some of his medications. The hallucinations went away. And she started juicing for him, doing all these right things. Again, the man was getting better. Yeah, he was still in a wheelchair because he was old.
Do you think that's the solution to our problem?
I think that medicating them too much.
Well, I'm not talking about medicating.
No, well,
I'm talking about paying for the cost of their care and equalizing the playing field and making sure that we have equal justice for all.
That's part of it. The medication, what they're doing,
Yes,
it's a
sir.
cost.
Love that color, by the way. Is there a name for that color? Is that chartreuse, I think? Is that what that is?
My question is two-part on the legislation. Was it intent to cut abuse, or was it intent to reduce the budget? And then the second part of my question, it would seem more humane across the boards, doesn't matter what party you're on, that there would be a limit as to who can get a Medicaid income trust, whether it be 500,000 in assets or $1 million. I think that seems more humane, because right now it's a free-for-all. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, let me go in reverse order. Not so much a free-for-all, basically. The clients that I see are middle-class, normal folks, worked all their lives, have a modest amount of savings, not millionaires. The average client that I have may have $150,000 in assets. Okay. I have some clients that have more, and I honestly have a lot less as well. But this kind of the bell curve is right around maybe $150,000, $175,000 where the top of the bell curve is. So it's not the Wild West, and it's not willy-nilly, and there's no need for this limitation. They have a limitation. The limitation in Medicaid is $2,000. That's the limitation. If you're married, you're allowed to have $117,000, your house and your car. So there is a disparity between the single individual and the couple. It's part of how they settled it in 1988 to change the rule was they wanted to make it so that the spouse would not be impoverished by the other spouse's medical bills. Interestingly enough, exactly what we're trying to unwind with this legislation that was there. So, did I answer the last part of your question?
Yeah, right. What about the first?
Okay, the first part of your question was?
About what's the intent of this legislation?
The intent of the legislation, good, thank you. Well, remember that pendulum, right? I've been using this technique for probably 10 years. And what has happened is I feel I'm very conservative in my implementation of the technique. I don't overextend it into realms of fiction that's just beyond the realm of credibility. I pay the person a reasonable rate for a reasonable amount of hours that I could document if I had to. So it's all within the sense of reason. But what we've seen happen in the last couple of years is that into this area, into this kind of realm, have come Medicaid planners. And what these folks do, they're not lawyers, they're not regulated by the bar, they also are not self-regulating in any way, and have been abusing the system. So part of this legislation was in response to DCF's cry of foul, hey, people are going out there and doing this way outside the realm of fiction. I mean, beyond belief, you'll have $1 million, they'll do $1 million, they'll do a contract for a 100-year-old woman, and they'll move $300,000 under that contract, which is ridiculous, okay? I mean, it's offensive. So part of that legislation was to curb that abuse. But again, it's a baby in bathwater problem. We're throwing the whole damn thing out in order to solve those abusive situations. So that was part of the intent. I don't believe that it's a credible argument that it would have that big of a budgetary effect on the overall situation. It's like squeezing, I've always said it's like squeezing a watermelon seed. The harder you squeeze it, what happens? Faster it comes out between your fingers. So even the more that they do this, there's always something else that I will be able to do to fix this problem for my clients. I just have to shift gears. So it's not that it goes away completely what I do, it's just that it limits, or would limit if it would have passed, because I'll tell you what happened to the legislation, that it would have removed one of the most easy, straightforward techniques that I could implement for the family, which allows them to have full access to that money, to pay for the caregivers that you're adding into the system, to pay for the private room for that individual if they needed it, to maintain liquidity, not putting it into some sort of risky situation. It would have removed that particular technique from my arsenal. And it would also make you spouses liable. So what happens to the legislation? Historically, this is what happened. In the House, it went bang, 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 through 3 committees, onto the House floor, voted, passed. Okay? It went into the Senate side, senator, I shouldn't say little senator, it's so far away. Apalachicola, not even Apalachicola, all the way Panama City, the very, very, very northernmost county in or district named Senator Evers. Nice guy, real good guy, but he was approached by DCF to sponsor this bill. And so he sponsored the Senate side. So through some lobbying efforts and some pleading and some trying to say, hey, let's take a look at this a little bit more carefully and not just throw baby and bathwater out, let's maybe go through and work with DCF to work with some ways of curbing these abuses so that we can still have this technique in place in some way, shape, or form, but not have the same opportunities for abuse in the system. So, and when it hit the Department of Children and Families Committee, there had already been basically a deal brokered between DCF and various interested parties that said that they would do a strikeout bill. And with a strikeout bill, it is basically a strikeout amendment. They just strike out everything in the bill, and that's the new bill. So boom, poof, disappeared. Since there was no Senate companion to go along with the House bill, the effort died on the floor. Yay. So that's where we're at right now. So yay. But this is the problem, is that this is seen from an external perspective as a Republican-endorsed proposal. That this is a Republican-motivated and led charge to change these laws. That pendulum swing is not seen as a Democratic move from the Democratic side, but as a move that is being pushed but from the Republican side. And in my world, it paints a picture of us painting crosshairs on the backs of seniors. And that does not, in my world, seem to be a positive thing to treat this very loyal and voting demographic. So just my opinion. So, yes, sir.
Before you were talking about the system's bound to go bankrupt sooner or later, what can we do now, so that we got a little time to prepare for that? Is it worthwhile doing a trust or a long-term insurance or what?
That's a good question. There's one job that I'm glad I don't have, and that is a long-term care insurance salesman. Okay, because if I asked every one of you in this room, now I could sell life insurance. I can do that all day long. Because if I asked you guys, are you going to die? But someday, right? I mean, you're right, exactly. Everybody deep down, okay, you'll admit that you're going to die someday. But if I ask you, are any of you going to go into a nursing home? What? And it was without emphatic, no, absolutely not, no way. So how in the world am I going to sell you long-term care insurance, my dear? I'm not going to. So, well, that's why I don't want that job. But what can you do? Is if you have a group long-term care policy through your employer that you can get reasonable rates, if you can afford the premiums and you have enough assets to protect, which warrant that risk management through insurance, I suggest long-term care insurance. I think it's a great plan. There is actually a plan. You've heard of carrot and stick, right? What's carrot and stick? They give you something. They also take something away, or they penalize you, but they also give something back. There is a carrot and stick currently in place that helps solve this problem. It's called a partnership insurance program. And what this does is it allows you to buy yourself into Medicaid. So let's say you have $350,000 that's sitting out there at risk. That's in your CDs and money market. That's a lot more than you're allowed to have to be eligible for Medicaid. If you buy a $300,000 partnership policy, and what that partnership policy says is that the policy will pay up to $300,000 of your care inside of a nursing home. And once that policy is exhausted, Medicaid will increase your asset limit by $300,000. So that now when your insurance runs out, you can go right onto Medicaid and you don't even have to come see me to fix the problem. That's called a partnership plan. It's the carrot and the stick. The stick is, mostly carrot actually, but if you go out and you buy this insurance, the problem is, you gotta believe that you might go to the nursing home. B, you gotta have the money to afford it. C, you have to be insurable. And they've just changed the underwriting rules, which makes it harder to get insured. Okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for this tonight. Fabulous support. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for your input. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much
for coming.
Okay, I hope that was helpful.
That was amazing.
Okay, great. Okay.
For me especially, because I knew nothing about it.
Well, great. All right, guys.
Beginning with the cost of nursing home, I had no idea.
No idea.
No idea, so.
And thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your input. Chartreuse, I'm going to look it up. I'm pretty sure that is. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to see my family. Gail, good night, everybody.
Good night, thank you.